sharp at 3:30 because there is a local procession happening at the Padmanabha Swami temple, so the traffic will be blocked. So that's why we wanted to start in time. Dr. Abraham might not be able to reach because he has got some very important commitments in the CM's office. I'm not quite sure whether he could drop in later. So I'll get into my task of presenting the report. The detailed project report has been already circulated. I don't say well in advance, but it was sent at least 3-4 days back. I know that many of the eminent persons who have come, we all have a short enough time, but I'm sure they would have gone through. The role of Kdisc in this program is as a facilitator. Kila had been the primary LSJ connects. We had inputs from the various academic organizations, the startups, the community organizations who have helped us with the problem-solving challenges that Kerala is facing with quite a lot of passion. And I am indebted to my team for all the good things that has been done. I would like to definitely the credit of all that goes to my team, which includes the few senior People's Plan functionaries who had been very patiently overcoming their age. The passion of decentralized planning, People's Plan, they had been able to keep. And they had to work with a team which is much younger than them, who knew a few things about, possibly about technology, about program management, but did not know many things about decentralization. In fact, I was the only person in the team when we started. Later, Sri Kumar also joined, who knew about decentralization, was in part of decentralization. So it was a learning process for the team also. They learned decentralization. Going to panchayats, talking to leaders, they understood decentralization. And they tried to talk to them about innovation also, because that was a time where Kdisc itself was trying to find out what innovation is. So people, I don't say that we have understood what innovation is fully. We are in the process of trying to create a blueprint of our own. So I'll quickly get into my task. This is what I would like to present. A program overview, the methodological framework, the process of problem curation that we did, the technology readiness, community readiness, level assessment framework, the pilot projects overview, the hackathons that we worked with, the zero waste hackathon, the human-animal conflict hackathon, the urban transition hackathon, the new academic collaborations which have come up subsequently, the block innovation cluster, the model which we are trying to build now, and possibly way forward. I'll start off with the introducing what Kdisc had been doing. This slide might not be very clearly visible. Anyway, that reflects, that covers the entire set of activities what Kdisc is doing. We initiated this exercise immediately after in Kerala, after the Knowledge Commission report was formed and the decade of innovation was declared by the Government of India. Sam Pitroda had taken the leadership to create the National Innovation Council. And subsequently, state innovation councils were also formed. In Kerala, the State Innovation Council turned out to be a place where senior civil servants could work with. Nothing much was done initially. I mean, nothing wrong with the civil servants who had associated. And it was decided in 2016 that the State Innovation Council would be dissolved. It was also the time when Dr. K.M. Abraham, who was then Chief Secretary, was asked to create a think tank for addressing cutting-edge development issues, because the new government which took over in 2016 wanted to address some of the cutting-edge issues in development. And there was a focus that we have to address second-generation development issues in Kerala, different from how the Vimaru states are looking at it. And there is a need for working at such cutting-edge level. And a think tank was proposed to be formed. Dr. K.M. Abraham suggested that why don't we already have an organization, Kerala State Innovation Council. Why not rename it as a Kerala State, as a Kerala Development Innovation Strategy Council, and initiate that. So that was how the Kdisc was formed. And I became the strategic advisor of Kdisc along with Dr. K.M. Abraham. We had a small team of 2 to 3 people to start with, and a fairly big team from the Secretariat who was part of the Innovation Council area. So we initially started off as a council with a few prominent Malayalis. There was another Dr. K.M. Abraham, who had quite a lot of lithium-ion patents, was a promising chemistry person from Central Kerala who had gone to US and had been working with industry. There was one Ajay Pulikal, who is a promising scientist who could be a Nobel laureate. It was said that he would become a Nobel laureate. From the Rice University, there was Shibulan from Infosys. Vaidyanathan was Shyam Srinivas was the chairman of the Federal Bank. Then Dr. V.K. Ramanathan from the Planning Board. This was the sort of council which was formed, and we started off working on a few programs. The Young Innovators Program, we wanted to have a program for innovation for children. We found that mathematics skills of students in Kerala were not up to the mark. So we tried looking at how we can improve that. So these were the 2 programs that we started. We had looked at the model of what Sam Pitroda had been trying to do. Took a lot of inputs from the National Innovation Council website at that time. That was fast being closed down, because after the Planning Commission was dissolved and Niti Aayog was formed, Sam Pitroda had submitted his resignation. And what all good work that Sam Pitroda had done were completely being buried. So we quickly picked up whatever was available in the documentation and then started, because nobody was looking at it. So we thought that we will try to do something new in Kerala around that. And that was how Kdisc was formed. We have a variety of programs. I will not be in a position to go through all the details. On the top, the A category is the DUI innovation, the doing, using, interacting type of innovation. The Young Innovators Program, the One Local Government, One Idea Program, One District, One Idea Program, it's an MSME program, innovation in government, and then innovation for the challenged, people with disability. So these are all programs that we had initiated. Then we had at the bottom, you can see the point where we wanted to bring in to address the issue of employability by skilling. That was another program that we had taken up in 2021. Dr. Thomas Isaac in his budget had announced the transition to Knowledge Society in Kerala. And he looked at innovation as a major driver in the transition. And we were asked to address the issue of employability of the educated and employed, primarily from a gender point of view, because he found that the critical impact which we would we could make was in making women employable. And thankfully now, after 3-4 years of playing around with it, Dr. Isaac himself is now taken over as the advisor at his old age to help us driving the innovation, the employability program to the field. So that is how the Kerala Economy Vision program transformed as Vijnana Kerala. We have a variety of coordinated projects where we try out some of it's an action research mode trials of some of the innovations that we pick up from other players. We have a smart coffee program where we are working with the coffee farmers in Maya. Dr. Jiju has been helping us. We have a Miyawaki program where we are working with some NGOs on trying to see how urban open space can be created. A multi-stakeholder platform basically that's not a project which is not seriously taken off. We had created a model for using safe to eat food. But the agriculture department has got a very strong clout, and there is a dispute whether it has to be handled by the cooperative or the agriculture department. And unfortunately in Kerala politics, when the agriculture department decides it is not possible to do something, it is not very easy for us to try. Jiju knows that. So that is the unfortunate thing, but we are still trying to see whether safe to eat food can be given to the people and we can create a platform where cooperatives can come together and producers can provide value-added products. We have a variety of science, technology, innovation programs, SDI innovation programs, an accelerated blockchain competency development program, which is now completely passed on to Digital University. It's a very prestigious program. 5 centers of excellence, global centers of excellence in blockchain has moved into Kerala during the last 4 years without quite a lot of fuss. The Digital University runs the course in 175 countries, and all the IITs, they run it on a MOOC mode. So it's a blockchain program which has been established with international support. We had 2 foreigners staying in Digital University for 1 year. We provided the funding for them. And based on that, we have created one of the most ambitious emerging technology programs which have been built in Kerala. We have a medical technology consortium where we are trying to make a hub of medical technology devices around the model with Sri Chitra Tirunal that's built. Padma Umar from Thermo Penpal is leading that initiative. In Bio360 Park, a number of investments have already come up in this cutting-edge area. We're trying to leverage the capabilities of the tertiary healthcare system in Kerala and the R&D system as part of that. We have an EV consortium. We have made the first lithium titanate battery in India with the support of engineering model of that, with the support of Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. We work with the Center for Development of Advanced Computing to develop a wide bandgap semiconductor-based battery management system. That's the difference between a lead-acid battery and a new generation battery. It was a battery management system. And we are also trying to see whether we can have powertrain drives and testing of those facilities. We have brought a consortium of the Government Engineering College Research Park, which is called the Trust Park, the Titanium, the VSSE, and Center for Development of Advanced Computing. It had been a very tedious task to bring all these great people together. And along with that titanium, we are using the titanium hydroxide, which is a byproduct in titanium factory, to create lithium titanate. They have also got a process whereby they generate ferrosulfate. We are trying to use that for lithium iron phosphate. So these are 2 cutting-edge battery technologies which we, with quite a lot of effort, have painstakingly built that, and we are now on the stage of going for the pilot scale manufacture in titanium. We will be releasing the RFP shortly, and before the term of the government is over, we hope that we will be able to start making lithium titanate batteries locally. We have a center of excellence in microbiome, which is working with the support of RGCB, the Rajiv Gandhi Biotechnological Center. We have a center of excellence in nutraceuticals. We have a center of excellence in Kerala Genome. That's the first program on genomics which we wanted. Unfortunately, Kerala makes debates on all issues. So, data privacy being a central point, there was a confusion whether we could get into human genomics. There was a worry that the whole creativity debate and the issue of the evolution, transition, all would be raked up as a controversy in Kerala. Anyway, we decided to work on the certain specific areas of human genomics, especially the issue of sickle cell anemia in Wayanad, some of the major epidemics and related areas. So we are establishing the first high-performance computing facility for genomics in the country, in the Digital Science Park. We are almost, by December 1st, we'll be able to inaugurate the center. So along with that, we have also planned out the Kerala Open Talent mechanism, basically to bring in, I don't know whether it will ultimately turn out as alternatives to Uber and Oloi and things like that. Essentially what it wants to look at is to create freelance ecosystems on a digital platform, which would be a sort of a community alternative to the Uber and Oloi of the world, which involves knowledge workers, creative artists, and even workers who offer physical services. So this is a sort of broad gamut of what Kdisc is trying to do. So I just thought, as an introduction, I would talk about this. Now coming to the Oloi program. The focus had been on problems which the local governments and the implementing officers cannot handle on their own. We wanted to enter into only areas where innovation could do something, and we will not enter into any area which a local government could otherwise do. So one of the problems of decentralization, we have Raghu here, and we were expecting Meenakshi Sundaram sir, but it's not released. One of the problems that we have seen is that local governments, because they have a term of 5 years, they are not in a position to look beyond 5 years. So they will solve anything which is possible to finish within that term of 5 years. So this is limited addressing, critical problems and difficult problems. So this was one of the things that we wanted to address as a challenge. There are also the issues of transition from the low productivity, low value addition economic base to one of high productivity and high value addition, which was the central point which Dr. Isaac was trying to drive when he was talking about the knowledge economic transition. So as an economist, he had been looking at these specific issues and trying to address that. So naturally, local government being a central part of Kerala's development, these issues also have to be addressed. Dr. Jiju had been trying to create a model for local economic development, which was announced ambitiously by the State Planning Board and the local government department. But we have not made quite a lot of headway into that. In fact, that is one of our points for discussion. We have been successful in quite a lot of problem solving, but the only area where we have not made a serious dent is in the area of local economic development. So we have to address that. Another area is, of course, the Urban Commission has come out with a report. If I am asked what have been one of the most important failures of local government in Kerala, I would say that the local government has not looked at the problem of urbanization and the urban local bodies and the issues arising out of urbanization. That would be the sort of statement which I would make. And so that is another issue which is also we are planning to address. So to what extent we'll be able to look at urban issues, because Kerala is 80% urbanized, and by 2050 Kerala is going to be a single metro from Kanyakumari all the way to Bangalore. The complexities of urban services and urban infrastructure is going to be humongous. And people are talking about a lot of things, smart city, smart town, and there is nothing smart about it. There is nothing people-centric about it. So this is issues to be very seriously addressed. Next slide. Okay. We had initiated the problem when one local government, one idea program was announced. In spite of the fact that I have quite a lot of familiarity with the local government terrain, having worked for nearly 15 years on computerization of local governments. When the program was launched, I found that it was very difficult to communicate. Nobody accepted the relevance of innovation in local governments, and they did not find any connect with what we are talking. Interestingly, there was already a government order issued focusing on innovative projects in local governments. And the smart secretaries in local governments, the panchayat secretaries, the municipal secretaries, they had defined innovation as anything which short circuits the guideline is innovation. So whatever which is not according to the guideline, which is done, they define it as innovation project. And there were a number of projects which were driven by the local governments as innovative projects. And we looked at that, and there was absolutely no innovation in any of these things. So that was the sort of terrain that we had to get into when we started. So even very committed people asked, what exactly you are talking about? What is the thing that you are trying to do? Are you talking about science and technology? Are you talking about research? Are you talking about startup? What are you exactly trying to do? I said innovation is problem solving. And if you have problems to be solved, which has not been solved, we will try a mechanism for problem solving. There is a possibility of bringing in the quadruple helix, which would be the solution to this. So they were asking about which international model are you talking about? Do you know any place where local governments have got seriously into innovation? Or quadruple helix has been put in place? Started talking about Silicon Valley. We have started talking about some of the things in China, which very few people knew. I mean, people were not convinced. So one good thing was that because nobody knew that, so we decided to build the methodology on our own. And whatever we have built is what we learned the hard way during the last 4 years. We discovered the methodology. We tried to bring in from the academic partners. And Narayan he had spent quite a lot of time. We had disagreements, for instance, on the Ramangiri model. One good thing about N.C. Narayan is that he's a very tough as far as it comes to engineers, contractors, and consultants. So he thinks that whatever bad has happened in Kerala, in the economy, basically because his area is ecology and development so close to the nature. So anything engineering, if he sees it a lens, he is very critical about that. So in a way, it was very interesting, and in the context of sustainability, a lot of value is there in what Narayan had been talked about. But we wanted also to be out of the box in many ways. And we couldn't reconcile to the ready-made solutions. I mean, not we. I still remember the interaction that we had with the Ramangiri Panchayat president, who was a Kudumbasri lady. So I was, during the 2018 flood, I was part of a mechanism which was established in the CM's office for communicating with the various people in difficulty and trying to provide the disaster support. So I was the connection point with the engineering colleges, the IITs, the programmers and organizations and stuff like that to do the connections. When communication systems are broken down, and people from abroad were looking for how they can save their grandmother or grandfather who had been caught inside a flooded area and stuff like that. Into this, so interestingly, this lady said, "Sir, we were all taken to a shelter in a school. Given a chance, I will not go there." So I could see Devendra Mash was there. I could just see the sort of spark in her eyes when she said it. She had a different aspiration. I was seeing that, okay, there is a new middle class issue of privacy of a woman in using the toilet. A new concern on cleanliness which had come up. So I said that this issue has to be addressed. And we cannot go by the community toilet model which Tax had proposed. That model will not work. We have seen that the community toilet model has failed. So, I mean, there are a lot of padding up saying that we will do it this way, it will be a community kitchen, we can have serve tea, the people will all come. I said no community toilet will work. There was an issue regarding cost. Professor Ravindran, knowing the plight of local governments and the toilet and things like that, he was very firm that whatever toilet that we bring has to be based on the DRDO model or the various other models, and the cost is a major issue. I try to raise it, look at it from an entirely different point. Number one, this is not the issue of Ramangiri or Kutanadu. This is going to be the issue of 1/3 of Kerala. With sea water table rising, this issue of flushing of toilets is no longer going to be. Ravindra Maharsh was saying that it is a problem in Vaipu, it's a problem in Parnani, it is a problem in the coastal area of Malappuram, whole areas of Trichy. So why not try to address it as a last mile problem which can be resolved? We have to look at it entirely different mechanism of financing that last mile issue. The way we have financed electric distribution lines, the way we have financed gas distribution lines. That's a mechanism by which we have to look at, not looking at the latrine or the toilet and the sort of sanitary services as an end-use project, a product which is a gravity in situ model of toilet. We have to make a break from that and to look at something entirely different. A modern gadget which could work in a toilet. A hub and spoke model where we could remove the material and then process it. Here we are talking about that. There is one project which we had been trying to push as a sort of a very important thing. We tried a hackathon, but we have not been able to get the experts on IoT, the experts on hydraulics, the experts in pneumatics, the experts in sanitation, and try to have a common language talking to all these people. My friends from Tax are here who have been very closely working on it. We have not yet been able to come to solutions. Foundations came to us, experts from the World Bank came to us, said that we have tried this in Dhaka, we have tried it in Indonesia, but we couldn't find any good solution. It's something which we are trying to look at again. But I'm sure that we will be able to come to some sort of workaround for this. So these are sort of challenges where we had intense debates and things. The sort of methodological framework we have been talking about is one, to talk to the local government, find out what is their pain point. There is an issue of language. The engineers and the scientists and the development activists, they cannot talk in the way the local government leader talks. They are talking about their pain points. We have to look at the pain point, address the root cause, and try to put it into a problem framework. That was the toughest part of the exercise. So that is what we did. Of course, number one, there was a commitment that decentralization has succeeded and will succeed. Number two, innovation is not done by experts, scientists, engineers, but it's done by the people, common. Out of a struggle for toil, innovation has been done by them. So the faith that basically people will know solutions better than anybody, that commitment was also driving us. So basically we started off with the methodology of the problem definition by discussing with the people's leaders. Then we went back to community of practice. Community of practice, looking analytically what are sort of solutions which are available. What are the possible approaches? And looking at it from an interdisciplinary framework to see how problems get solved. Then we had also mooted that we'll publicly announce the problem statements and look for solutions. We have not been able to succeed in coming up with solutions. Unfortunately, we didn't have a good word. We used the word ideathon, we used the word mapathon, we used the word hackathon, but finally we rusted around hackathon, even though there is a IT hype around it. We continued to use the word of hackathon. So basically we wanted people to come to solutions on problems which are being focused. Then measured that going to solution. Next. This is sort of the methodology dynamically developed itself. I told you how the team had been trying to immerse in decentralization and trying to look at innovation. Next. These are the 68 problems which have been highlighted. We had the problem Ramangiri Panchayat at the top, which had focused on sanitation. We had a Bud School was another program that we had tried to work around children with disability. We have not been very successful in the initial trials, but now Kdisc has got a very interesting program called Stride, where we are trying to rehabilitate people with disabilities. So we've got much better understanding of how to look at the Bud School. So it will be possibly in the next plan we'll be able to look at that. Bird flu was one of the problems which was highlighted, especially for the ducks in Kuttanad and other areas. That requires a much wider look at a solution. So the animal husbandry department was working basically around the legal framework of the created by the government of India. They are not very seriously interested in looking at whether we can have a mechanism of monitoring of this and then assessment of whether the flu influx is coming at some location with an appropriate, with a sort of microclimatic variation and stuff like that. We wanted to have monitoring stations established for that. Unless it was done jointly with the agriculture department, the forest department and all that, it is not going to be very easy. So that required a pan-Kerala coverage for the station. We have not been able to look at that. We have been trying to do that. Tram processing is one project that Jayarajan was very with quite a lot of passion trying to proceed. We have in fact a good solution. We are now struggling with creating the facility for that. We had ULCS to support us, but then they have got quite a lot of payments pending from government, and they said it would be very difficult for them to take this work before March. I'm not quite sure. We are trying to work around with some NABARD support for that. I'm not quite sure whether we'll be able to go ahead with that. Problems are the elderly, very interesting team from Ilikulam Grappa had come out. And they said that they have the senior elders for the 80-year elders were being looked after by the 70-year elders, and the 70-year elders were looked after by the 60-year elders. And we had young elders to look after the rest. So we had problems around that. Yeah, Deepa had been kind enough to tell me that I am very bad in time management. Okay, I'll try to be very fast. So we have a number of other issues. The aggregation platform, which I talked about, the food platform, the human-animal conflict, flooding, drinking water, etc. So this is a problem curation process where we try to be the development communicator role for understanding the problem and trying to tie it together. Let us go to the pilot processes. I will give a feel of 2 or 3 projects and then proceed. Next one. So we created the TRL CRL assessment. The TRL assessment was from Niti Aayog, which was much better than the NASA model. So we picked up from that because that is much easier to understand. We had the community readiness assessment also was very critical. So we tried to emulate that from the Colorado State University model, which is strongly based on principles of change management and the cause-effect interaction, where, I strongly believe that a behavioral change in the community is possible through specific actions. And because it was aligned to that, we picked up that model for the CRL thing. I will limit myself to a few pilot projects very quickly. Next. So 3 projects which TAX has helped build solutions for. Interestingly, those 3 projects are representative of Kerala's drinking water sector. So I'll go into 3 of them. Number 1, Srinarayanapuram, the Srinarayanapuram drinking water issue, a coastal area, low-lying coastal area, close to the Kanuri Canal, sandy soil, high water table, salinity intrusion in the dry season following high distraction. That's a problem. We have 3 levels of solutions: a short-term solution, RO water kiosk, then essentially also addressing the problems of the marginalized and institutions there. A solar-driven portable RO model from the ARC, which is used as a medium-term solution to reduce dependency on tanker waters. And in the long-term, rainwater harvesting, ferrocement tanks for storage and use, restoration of ponds, wells, and improving the Kanuri Canal ecosystem. These are the things that have been planned. A beautiful integrated model which has been tried out for Srinarayanapuram. The next one, the hydraulic isolation shaft technology drinking water project for Elagaman in Article. It's a classic midland ecosystem with hilly areas where there is a last mile pressure drop which creates in Kerala, the water lines and electricity lines go round and round depending on how the habitation expands. So we have quite a lot of issues in terms of pressure drops in various places. And in some places the pressure is so high that water is quickly drained. So we have picked up a patented product from IIT Bombay. And that has been adapted to the local condition. It's called the shaft technology. We are using that. It's very cost effective. And we are also improving the water supply systems by retrofits, filter management systems. in the short term. In the medium term, to identify new springs, new sources. There are springs, but because of land disputes and stuff like that. And also finally the beneficiaries are SC people who are on the higher runs, and so people are too Brahminical to allow enough water to be taken to the SCs. So we are trying to see whether it is possible to have IoT-based systems and management and monitoring. And in the long term, to create a master plan, water recharge mechanisms and network optimization with automation. So this is sort of plan that has been made for the Midland. And now for the Highland area, we have, third one, that is Paivaliga in Kasaragod, where we have hard-rocked highland and a hilly watershed. Very hard land, right? Weathered granite. These are the topographical and geological challenge. Serious issues because of extraction, and there are over-exploitation, and the solution that we are proposing is a managed aquifer with recharging, infiltration ponds, injection wells, restoration of ponds, quarries, and looking for avenues of subsurface storage. These are sort of solutions that we are talked about by Delegate. Ajay had been working long ago for creating the drinking water and water management systems in local government. So I remember the days when Resi was talking about the work they were jointly doing. So now we are trying to address some of the complexities on the drinking water system which was tried out in those days. So that is one set of projects. Now I quickly go to the next set. Kumaragam, there is the issue of flooding where you have drinking water shortage, also diseases because of canals not being maintained, ponds not being maintained properly, weedy. And again, people who are the most marginalized are the people who are just like the elevated areas where the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are affected, and the marginalized people in the coastal area. There is also another section of the marginalized people who are the most affected. So typical of a backwater adjacent wetland rice cultivation aquatic ecosystem, where we are looking at canal cleaning, desilting, biobond construction, and canal network restoration as a sort of solutions, adaptive housing and plinth area working. These are sort of solutions that have been proposed for. Now one is the Kumaragam, then the second is Mulakkara. There is a Alleppey ecosystem, not typical Kuttanad, but Alleppey canal ecosystem. And the third one is the urban flooding, which is also very characteristic of several areas in Kerala, where there is further complexity because of concrete build-up, lack of drainage, riverine encroachment, paddy field filling, blockage of hydraulic works have been helping us very well. We have been using the Tata support for that, and the Tata Trust support for that, and the Toronto University program. Next slide. See, statements we created with the civil society people who have been working on solid waste and identifying the real problems and stuff like that. It came up with a number of solutions. I'll quickly run through them. Next. We said disgrace to women around us because I was entire Pampa is flooded with this. I'm ashamed of this, what you say. And only this is happening. So there has to be a mechanism of regaining self-respect by doing the proper course.
Dr. Mihir Shah, former member of Planning Commission, Sri Rekudandan Tia, former Joint Secretary, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Dr. N.C. Narayanan, Professor, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, Sri Joe Madiyar, Honorary Chairman, Gram Vikas, Srimati Preeta Lal, former Executive Director, Local Governance Initiative Network, Dr. Ajit Radhakrishnan, Senior Specialist, World Bank, Dr. Dinesh Abroad, Professor, Indian Institute of Studies in Industrial Development, Dr. Jiju P. Alex, Member, Kerala State Planning Board.
Everybody, I think without wasting any more time, we'll get into the business. We have roughly around an hour, sorry, 2 hours with us, and we have we have 12 panelists. So I think panelists, they themselves conduct themselves with the time. So I'm not going to put any restrictions, but then we should see that the next panelist gets their own time. So first I call on Dr. Mirsha, please.
I must begin by congratulating Kdisc and for the extraordinary work that all of you are doing. The entire team deserves great congratulations. And I also must congratulate you for the kind of panel you have invited today. Because, after listening to your presentation, Mr. Onikrishnan, which I had already in the report that had been circulated, I tried to familiarize myself with the work. And especially the annexures were of great interest because they detailed. I think you're very good at documentation, so don't say that you're not good at documentation because it was a really well compiled report. But what I want to say is that perhaps you are yourself not realizing the significance of what you're doing. In my own view, quickly formed with the little time I've had to see the work, I would go as far as to say that this work is of world historic importance. Now forgive if it sounds an exaggeration, but if we look at what's happening to the planet today, if we look at the crisis of near destruction, planetary extinction that we face, I think the entire world is looking for a major shift from the development paradigms of the mid-20th century, because that's where we have all been stuck. We are all stuck, I think you would agree, in the paradigm that has dominated development since, let's say, India's second five-year plan was formulated, which is a time when so many countries were coming out of colonial rule and development economics had a certain thrust. The Soviet experiment was before everybody and we were all inspired by that example. And there was a lot of merit in that model. It was the need of the time. It served its purpose. Just like the Green Revolution of the 1970s and so on. These are all part of a certain way of defining development and defining the relationship that an economy must have with the larger ecosystem of which the economy is a part. It's based on command and control of nature. It's based on a model of mastery. And we have to recognize that the 20th century has been a very humbling experience for most of humanity. And there is therefore a deep yearning and there is a lot of work that is already happening across the world on the need to redefine this paradigm of development, and the people sitting on the stage with me, with whom many of whom I have worked for so many years, are all champions. I particularly would like to refer to the work of Joe Modaev. I'm so happy to see my friend here. I made him the chair of the working group in the 12th five-year plan on drinking water and sanitation. And I hope all of you are familiar with this work. If you are not, I would commend to you. It's a path-breaking work on how we must find innovative solutions to these problems, and I'm so glad to see him here today. His organization Gram Vikas works in the most difficult geographies of this country, has done this kind of extraordinary work, which is already showing the world the way forward in solving some of our most difficult problems. You mentioned waste management. As I'm so happy, my dear friend NC is already very closely associated with you, and he's been briefing me on the work on solid waste management that he's doing. These are again solutions which break with the old paradigm, which I'm sure he will elaborate, and which take us into the 21st century. So to my mind, what comes to my mind after reading your report is the fact that just like Kerala gave the world a model of development, in the late 20th century, we are now poised for the Kerala Innovative Model of Development 2.0. And I would really urge you to keep your ambition that high. See, the difficulty I had only with the report was that it became kind of a laundry list of activities being done in different locations. All of them very interesting, very innovative, very significant. But what we need to do, and this panel here, I'm sure we will all work together with you to try and reformulate this, the enormity of the significance of what you are doing actually can add up to becoming that paradigm which I am talking about, which has a completely different conception of the relationship between economy and ecosystem. It has a completely different conception about decision making, adopting firmly the principle of subsidiarity, which is of course the strength that Kerala always has had. So combining a bottom-up approach to development with decentralized planning, with people's involvement, especially under the leadership of women in a state which has had Kudumbashri, what more can you ask for? You already have therefore the building blocks, and I shared my article which was recently published in the Economic and Political Weekly towards a prosperous and plentiful Kerala. And I think the building blocks of the new paradigm of development in Kerala are in place. Your work is a great example of that, but what we need to do is to not be so humble or, and there's a danger of getting marginalized. See, when we do work in this bits and pieces kind of way, and we say innovation is our USP. So, innovation is like something which gets added on. What I am proposing is that we need an innovation-based model of development in the world, not just in Kerala, in the country. And Kerala, as always, should show the way to the rest of the country and rest of the world. And this Kdisc can be the hub from which that model grows. I know today nobody will accept what I'm saying, but the work you're doing as it grows organically in a germane fashion from the grassroots can add up to something much more significant than maybe what we are realizing today. And I wanted to suggest certain key resource people who could be of tremendous use to us. I circulated to the small group that we have, the WhatsApp group, a talk by Professor Jayati Ghosh. Now, you see, when we say ecology and economy, the general view is, oh, these people are protecting nature, they are not interested in jobs, they are not interested in livelihoods. That is the completely wrong way of presenting a case for ecology. If we have to present a case for ecological consciousness, it must be based on the fact that that is the best way to generate livelihoods. Now let me illustrate the point I'm making with reference to Kerala. I read your article, Mr. Unikrishnan, the one on the Bengal one you had presented. And I understand, the general view in Kerala that I see, I consider Kerala my second home. I don't know how many of you are aware. I've spent a large number of years at CDS. And the view is that we missed the bus in the 20th century because of a lot of constraints we had. So we couldn't do what the rest of the country or the rest of the world is doing. The industrialized states like Gujarat, and we have these examples who we greatly admire, overlooking of course the limitations that they all have. But what I want to suggest to you is that it may not have been a bad bus to have missed. If you look at cutting edge science and technology today, all over the world, in every field that you spoke about in your amazing presentation, in each and every one of them, the view is it's good to leapfrog from what you missed in the 20th century to go straight to the truly innovative solutions of the 21st century. And they are already being showcased in different parts of the world, in different significant ways. What we need to do is to get those resources to become available to us. So Joyati I particularly mentioned because she works very closely with who I believe is the leading economist in the world today. Her name is Mariana Mazzucato, who runs a very important institute of public policy in London. I'm sure, If I speak to Joyiti, we can encourage. Mariana advises governments across the world. And I can say, I can't promise, but she would leap when she sees the kind of work that you are doing. This should be something of great interest to people like her. David Sedlak, who NC knows very well at Berkeley, he's the person who's talking of this leapfrogging, to wastewater management of the 21st century, using completely cutting edge technology, but avoiding the high energy, high cost, high input paradigm of the 20th century. We have so many people like that who we can bring together. Gretchen Daly of Stanford is a close friend of mine. She is working with the government of China. China made a lot of mistakes in its ecological destruction. But it also is a country which realizes its mistakes and has vowed to become an ecological civilization. So the entire team of scientists from Stanford University is working with the Chinese government to talk of compensation for ecosystem services. Kerala is a state, we should not lament the fragility of our ecology. We must leverage that ecology to the benefit of the economy, to the benefit of job creation, of livelihoods. And so these are the kinds of approaches which are organically built into what you're already doing. So if we can, scale it and make it into the way we visualize development itself, not as a marginal add-on, not as something as an afterthought. Okay, kuch innovation bhi kar lete hain, as they say in North India. Let's do a little bit of innovation also. It has to be that innovation is mainstream into your development paradigm itself, and we could have something which we could be contributing, and all of us would be very happy to be part of this great new beginning, which should be, as I said, of great significance for Kerala, for India, and for the entire world. Thank you very much.
We know we are all a group of people who are real true friends of Kerala and so the direction. Yeah. Now may I call Sri Raghunandan Tia?
Thank you very much, Nikish. It's a real privilege to be here. First of all, I was a little surprised that you called me. I'm so behind the times now that I don't know if anything that I say will be of any use. So I came here mainly to learn. First of all, I'd like to point out a few reports that might be of some use to you. The first was a report which I co-authored with Dr. Govindrao, and I wrote it on economic development models in India and how the rural local governments could be part of promoting decentralized economic development, because that's mentioned in the constitution. But the rural local governments have not been involved in local economic development, and what we found was that the way that the dynamics of the rural local government functioning in India is actually inimical to the local economic development. If you look at worldwide examples of how dispersed economic development has been promoted, a lot of facilitation has been done by local government, which does shopping for talent, and it is linked to land values. So the whole idea is, I will invite Ford to create a factory in my area, and because of that my property values will increase, so I will gain more property tax, and that will be plowed back into providing better services, and therefore there will be more and more innovation, and there will be an upward spiral. This is the model that has been adopted, and you also find that this model can go in reverse. St. Louis, during Lindbergh's time, was the 4th largest city of the US. Now it's an example of urban decay. Birmingham was a fabulous city till they built a flyover that just went over Birmingham. I've been to Birmingham, it's a dead city at the moment. So the whole thing was that local governments have a stake in promoting innovation, attracting talent, and so on and so forth, which actually creates a liberal polity, because then you can encourage migration, the best brains coming. Unfortunately, in India, local governments are discouraged from collecting tax. And even though my good friend Thomas Isaac has been a champion of local governments, a little known fact is that as finance minister, he consistently opposed the raising of property tax rates by the panchayats. So what has happened, let's face it, in Kerala, local governments have been agencies. I mean, you're a little more flexible than other states. You give 30% of your grants. I don't know if it's today 30%. You make much of it. We all make powerful PowerPoint presentations about local government. But power corrupts, and PowerPoint corrupts absolutely. So the truth of the matter is that local governments have largely functioned as agencies. In Kerala, they function as better agencies. But at the same time, in Kerala, you've actually prevented your local governments from collecting taxes. And that's why in Kerala, you have seen the paradox of how local development is actually opposed by local governments. You see the famous Coca-Cola case, where Coca-Cola wanted to establish a factory and the local government opposed it. Now, had the model been such that if local governments began to attract industries and they created a positive contract with the industry that is coming in, whether it's Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is probably a bad example, but other industries. So the first thing that you will have to do is to free the bars on local government collecting local taxes, because if you want local governments to compete and bring in innovation, then they must have a positive financial stake in the whole process. And I do believe that the old conventional theories that the incentive structure will work if the local governments can raise enhanced property taxes. I still believe that there is substance in it, so you might like to work on it. Number two, and you raised so many ideas, and I think, I'm sorry to say this, but you're so intensely involved with this that it seemed a little cluttered, right? So I tried to kind of classify it, which I put in the group. I said there are two kinds of investments, in innovations. One is the innovation where a local government improves its quality of goods and services. So that is where local governments, all the entire gamut of goods and services to citizens, licensing, certification, water supply, waste management, energy generation, distribution, transport, agriculture, irrigation, logistics, healthcare, palliative treatment, which is becoming a big thing in Kerala. So the point is, if a local government improves all these services, who knows, somebody might just want to shift from Bangalore, which is a horrible city, but so full of innovation. This might be the tipping point. They might just come and say, I live in Mangrushi village in Palakkad, which is my home, and I'll have a much better quality of life, I live longer. So that is one kind of innovation. The second kind of innovation is the innovation taken up by businesses themselves to create better goods and services, for which you have to have a backing in terms of good education, good extension, and so on and so forth. So with respect to that second aspect, I would go very strongly with what Dr. Mihir Shah has said. You have to improve the quality of your universities. They are not of great quality. I mean, they are better than the rest of India, but that's not saying much. I mean, in India, we are driving the country to go 500, 600 years backward. I mean, every day you open the newspaper and you read something insane. Some rubbish, pseudoscience, cow-dung science is being pushed as mainstream science these days. Please don't fall into that trap. I know you will not, but it's not enough to just gloat that you are better than the rest of the universities which are going back to the dark ages. You really need to get the best talent. You have to bring in the best professors, you have to bring in the best collaborators from worldwide. It's not only about India. Now, with respect to the first, which is improving the quality of goods and services, there was a report that I co-chaired on urban planning and urban development, 2016 in the planning board, and I mentioned that in my observations that the problem with Kerala is that while you are urbanizing very fast, this is also the state where out of 950 panchayats, maybe about 600, maybe now more, 700, 800 panchayats have officially census towns, but they remain panchayats on the legal framework. So what you are trying to do is to handle the problems of urbanization with a rural fiscal architecture and a rural structure. And that has to change. You have to formally recognize that these areas are urban. The problem with recognizing a local government as urban is it because of the differential treatment towards people's participation in urban and rural, right? What happens is that citizens get disempowered. Ward committees are not as strong as your Gram Sabhas, legally. So the whole point is that participation, the intensity of participation, which has been a feature of Kerala's participative planning, will be lost if you formally declare these areas as urban. But the other problem is that most of your government procurement systems live in the 1950s. They really have not improved. So you might develop a very good innovative system for anything, for water supply, sewage, garbage, so on and so forth. the PWD will nix it because they don't have an SR rate for it. So you really need to improve your procurement services or make it flexible. Forget the PWD, dump them, which will not happen in Kerala because of the highly unionized hierarchical structure of control, which is actually a paradox if you look at your decentralized model. So you will have to work your way out of that to create a system by which innovations can be actually procured without creating audit problems and so on and so forth, so that they can be implemented locally. So that is one area where you will have to work. I think the other most important thing is that you have to provide a liberal and safe culture that attracts the best brains. Now, over the years I have moved on. I'm no longer involved only in local government. I also happen to be chairman of a company that is a brick and mortar company in the dirty business of mining. And we've just in 3-4 years made this 11,000 crore market capitalization company with in the top 500 companies of India. And we are alive to the challenge that mining is a dead business, it's going to die. We've acquired a steel plant, we are into cutting edge alloy production and so on and so forth. I also happen to be on 3 startups at different times, including started by my son, who manufactures radio collars for animal research. He works with monkeys in Peru. He provides his equipment to the San Diego Zoo. They have been used in the Arctic region for polar bear research and so on and so forth. Now I asked my son, who's half Malayali, why he doesn't shift to Kerala. He hates Bangalore for its bad quality of life. But he doesn't want to shift to Kerala. For this very reason, reluctantly. He says it's a lovely place, wonderful place. But the ecosystem in Bangalore is so good in terms of collecting the different miscellaneous talents that are required for him to make his production a reality and operate all the way from here to Peru to the Antarctic and so on and so forth. I wonder if that ecosystem exists in Kerala yet. And the sad part is a large number of people who run that ecosystem in Bangalore are Malayalis. These are the kind of people you need to tip it. You need to bring them back here. Goa is doing this with designers. Right? A whole lot of industrial designers and others sick or tired of living in Bombay and Delhi are moving into Goa. It has its problems. That is the kind of, you have to be very, very, shall I say, non-ideological when it comes to getting the best brains. But having said that, I think that we are all going to learn from what you are going to do. And I could help you in some ways by these kind of little bits and pieces there. I really haven't organized all my thoughts in my head. One way of doing it all is to prepare a mind map. I do that often in every company with which I am associated. Just sit down with people. I use FreeMind and write out the mind map. It clarifies as to what can be done at what level, in what sequence and all that. I'm very happy to do it simply because I'm going to get more educated. And I love coming to Kerala and I love fried fish. So I'll come here anytime you call me. That's all that you need to pay me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raghunandan. With due permission from MC Narayan, I'll call Joy Ardia. Because you have some time, as I understand, you have some work. Yeah, please, Joy Element.
First of all, sorry, I am actually having another workshop conducted by me, but so others are also there. That's why I am taking that time and coming here. Sorry for that, extremely sorry for that. But then Unnikishan has been after me, and that's how I just came in. Thank you for rescheduling. Also, NC, thank you. See, some of the statements we make across the globe, I would say that local governments and the People's Plan campaign have not led to local economic development. Just take the case of, I'm just taking that because I have seen even recently, even the last week, I have seen PowerPoints mentioning that in every aspect, People's Plan campaign and the local governments in Kerala have worked well, but except in local economic development. I refute that point. The kind of changes which have happened in Kerala across the state, that's the distribution pattern which you mentioned. It is not focused or concentrated in certain towns and cities, but across the state, in every village and every town, things have changed, especially in the area of local economic development. But that might not get classified in the way we define local economic development. The PPC, the People's Plan campaign, the projects which came after that, definitely have contributed to local economic development. And our elected representatives or the former elected representatives who are here, they can vouch for that. So many things have happened there. And especially with the Kudumashri, which has contributed. See, 30 years back, just have a look at 30 years before and see the change and how it has happened. Kudumashri, especially with a lot of enterprises which are coming, not about the kind of enterprises we have in Technopark or other things, but things have changed in that way. And the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme has contributed in a large way with regard to local economic development. What do you mean by local economic development is why I said defining local economic development is the question. Second, definitely we have problems, especially lack of skills, lack of understanding about what to do and how to do. It could have been the best way, that is the women component plan which we developed in the 1997 or so. And the point which was mentioned was that the projects under the women component plan should be those projects which are directly beneficial to women. It opened up a path, but we didn't reach. We did not move forward. And again the problem was that the lack of understanding about how to have this WCP, the Women Common Plan, we can do, and also the skills related to that and other things. Third one is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, where you have the opportunities for unskilled, semi-skilled and skilled. In the unskilled, we definitely move forward. And that again contributed. See, I can just tell what happened just after the COVID-19 pandemic. How local economic development contributed to reimagining, rebuilding Kerala, where everything started with MGNRGS coming back in action and how things started developing. But with regard to semi-skilled and unskilled labor, we did not move as we could have. So that is the one. And the fourth one is the Kudumashri. As I mentioned in the beginning, that had actually contributed a lot to local economic development with a lot of enterprises, small and big and other things, and now it has moved to a little more higher levels. But I would say that is in stagnation. The Kudumashri with the enterprises and other things, though various big projects are being announced, but that again takes us back to centralized areas where it can happen, but not to the local level, and there again there is stagnation. The fifth one is about knowledge-based local economic development. That is where the light is. How to move forward. Where the Vijnana Keralam program, which is happening with, I think, the 3 streams, I find those as the future. How Kdisc can actually lead Vijnana Keralam, the three streams, especially the academic part of the school and college part of it, the Kudumashri part of it, and the main job kind of thing. So I don't know whether you have separate names for all these things, but these are the 3 streams where the opportunity is. Sixth one was the Todil Sabha, where again we did not move further, but all these things which happened with the Vijnana Keralam and all had the seeds sown by the Todil Sabha, where we started talking about a different approach to enterprises and entrepreneurs and all kinds of things. And so we had actually tried to bring in those who are seeking job, those who can provide job, and those who can actually start enterprises, and where it is not about 10 people coming together to start an enterprise, even a single person can be an entrepreneur kind of thing. Because otherwise our thinking was only about self-help groups, neighborhood groups and groups, whereas entrepreneur need not be, the group need not be good entrepreneurs, so that is the kind of thing. And the seventh one is, I hope Dr. Jiju will actually talk about that. We have a fantastic government guideline on local economic development. It provides all opportunities and potentials. I think Professor Jiju should actually talk about that. But again, that to prove the local governments. And local governments have enough and more possibilities and potentials to carry on with it. Whatever you asked, it was all there. It is also still there. So, but it did not take off as expected. If you can go back to that, that would be the thing. Eighth one is about Kudumashri itself. When I said Kudumashri in stagnation, there is another point to that. All the members, see, one woman from a household can become a member of the Kudumashri, which started 29 years ago or 28 years ago. They are the members now. Still, they are the members. And next generations of women or girls have not been into Kudumashri. And the enterprises which you are thinking about are of all of the skills that generation has and not the new generation. And where we have a large, I would say the paradigm change in the skills and the education, the women, the girls are also when which called, that has not been tapped. And that is where auxiliary groups had come, where the young women can be part of Kudumashri as auxiliary group. That is where the potential is. And how to actually mold and facilitate the women enterprises of, women auxiliary groups, where skills, knowledge, education, everything is there of whatever you are talking about, all are there. Whether it is engineers, whether it is IT, whether it is the teachers, whatever you ask for, they are all there in our society, and that auxiliary groups need to be redefined. It should not be in the same line as the Kudumashri enterprises which we had earlier, because at that time that was the skill and education levels which we had, but now things have changed, it's a paradigm change, and we need to address that. Auxiliary groups, focus on the auxiliary groups, and then make this forward, and there, this thing. And then, it is not just about IT. Somehow we get into the IT alone, whereas social sector, all other kinds of things, all are there, and we need to tap them. And that is where, it is not about just enterprises. It is there we have the startup ecosystem. For the last 9 years, it is 100-fold increase in startup ecosystem in Kerala. And where, if the auxiliary groups and the startup ecosystem can come together, that actually addresses local economic development challenges. And 11th or 12th, you can say, and where we need to look outside also. I still have the example from Kutambakam 10 years back, where they had BPOs and startups and whatever, they name it as BPOs and startups, but with the same, within a village they could do, and we need to also look outside. Thank you.
Thank you for this very comprehensive report and the presentation in the morning. I am a little confused in the sense of whether I am an insider or an outsider. In the sense, I see myself as part of, actually it's 35 years now, from 1990, when Sri Kumar, Ajay, we worked on the Panchayat resource mapping. It was in December 1990 that IRTC that we first, actually that's one of the seeding of this kind of a thinking of spatio-social understanding of panchayats, and I think Unikrishnan was the registrar of IRTC at the time. And then I think a government change, and then it went to a cold storage. So then the PLDP program started, which is actually 5 panchayats did a very very in-depth analysis of 5 panchayats through in CDS, I think, when he was very involved with the Kalyasheri experiment, which was actually the seed of the People's Campaign in a way, where all the training materials could emerge from there, and So, being a small part of those exercises, although I left Kerala in 1997, those ideas never left me. That's the problem also. And then 2017, I could come back to Alleppey, thanks to Joy and Kila and Dr. Thomas Isaac, who was actually doing a very interesting experiment on solid waste management, because all our centralized dump sites have come down. I'll end up with that, actually the reflection of that exercise. But then the canals were polluted, so we needed some kind of a more integrated understanding of both solid and liquid waste management. By the time we were actually already worked on the Ganga Basin Management Plan, we've seen the kind of failures of STPs. Thanks to Dr. Mihir Shah, a 12th plan document of the Planning Commission was the most comprehensive document of water ever, paradigm shift. But then, after 2 years, Planning Commission got closed down and it became ETIU, so it got never implemented. But he still worked on the latest water policy also in 2021, which also did not see official light. But I think, we learned from all that, and so in Alleppey we were quite sure about this, energy intensity, capital intensity, and capacity intensive kind of solutions. Because as David said, tell us about it, if we need a kind of leapfrogging into the in a climate, changing world, what are the kinds of more small but disruptive technologies we need is the question that we asked. We actually came out with a DWAT system for a marginal settlement, which actually kind of hailed as a model because it actually improved the problems of solid and liquid waste management in that marginalized settlement. But after 2019 we did that, not even a single replication would be possible. So that is the kind of learning that we came from. So, so what are the kinds of issues that are there to, solutions that we projected was our learning. So thanks that, we got involved in the Oloi project from kind of, 3 years back, and when the tax forum with my students and our collaborators, they registered tax forum, and then so we could actually, so I think at certain points which I wrote down because I wanted to be kind of brief. What Oloi program actually taught us was one, it helped us actually scale up to eight more panchayats, and in kind of 4 more districts. And it could actually help us deepen the public goods issues that we were doing. Basically it was flood management, solid and liquid waste management, and drinking water. I think, so I think that was explained. And a second is the kind of, the framing of the problem. Framing of the problem with COPs and all is not a top-down framing. That was also there. And most importantly, the quadruple helix, which we were unconsciously doing. Actually, Oloi gave us a framework to kind of looking at with more protocols and not as kind of ad hoc issues. So these were our major learnings as to, the TRL, CRL assessments, prevent community rejection of, the kind of socially appropriate technologies. And you actually also mentioned about our innovative projects. So if I look at each one of them, and for example, the flood management issue, we actually used very innovative, technologies like GIS and flood modeling and hydrological modeling, and suggested biobunds, which was actually a kind of inexpensive technology also. But then what happened? Our we wanted Engineeraga to be integrated so that, one, it becomes inexpensive. Second, 70% of the costs actually go to labor. And and we proved it also. I think with Kila, we did in the Nerudi Panchayat, we had a pilot also done. So what we found was, Panchayats, although they put in money also, this coordination was the major issue with agriculture, rural development, and irrigation. Engineeraga, I think Samadhi is there. I think we should actually take that forward as on, because it can actually make inclusion and sustainability and flood management together. So I think we should actually I think this actually follows the watershed programs that at the national level that we were doing. Then Ramagiri, I completely agree with Unikrishnan's critique of we need kind of disruptive technologies to do that, and it's such a wicked issue, because it's at the water table level, surface water table level. So we actually work with the kind of received wisdom that we had, and but we are open to kind of discussions. But and then the drinking water issue also, which is actually, but as a self-critique, when we looked at Ilagaman, actually it's 31,000 rupees per household. This is for 100 households, we are having 31 lakhs. So the scaling, how do we do? Then even the managed aquifer recharge, we got the help of Aquadam, kind of the best hydrogeologists in India. So this is all kind of knowledge intensive also. So these two issues are there about the scaling of those issues. So coming to the general, what are the Oloi program's strengths is actually, one is the democratic problem identification, create stakeholder buy-in, projects address felt needs, not impose priorities, solutions address specific challenges at the context, then embedding innovation within the LSGI structure avoids parallel bureaucracies that collapse when external funding ceases. Engaging 30,000 students, I need 3 more. Engaging 30,000 students is, that's what our model was also there. LP 900 students have gone through. But then the challenge that we faced is actually the continuity. These are all sometimes, semester-long projects, and which needs faculty buy-in also. So I think very clear institutional, coordination with KG. But to be realistic, the teachers teach 16 hours a week. So I think there should be some kind of very clear understanding of the incentive system for the teachers also to kind of come into this. Identify wicked problems, transferable research. But coming to areas which needs improvement, financial sustainability concerns. I think, revenue generation potential, exit strategies if external funding ceases. Then standardization and simplification, which I already told, it's very, can we have more protocols developed so that even the engineering colleges can actually, try and bring this up. Better monitoring and evaluation, baselines, control groups, better quantitative metrics to evaluate projects, improving performance, secure funding, rigorous documentation, public detailed case studies with failures, not successes alone, create open source playbooks, multiple languages, bring better learning culture if we want to kind of scale it up also to India. Most importantly, need to, look at large programs, national programs like AJM, SBM, Amrit, which are all kind of failing in a way because of the national guidelines. And so can we have some discussion, especially there is very kind of, consultant oriented. So can we have this local, knowledge that's being generated to be with this? That also needs some kind of a national discussion for that. 3 implementation gaps. One is the procurement bottlenecks, LSGI procurement rules, designed for conventional civil work, don't accommodate innovative solutions from starters. Tender specifications favor established supplier.
Always thought that Kerala should be held straight. And it has been a leader in many things, especially with local governance, local administration. I have no confusion, like Professor N.C. Narayan, whether I am an insider or outsider. I am certainly an outsider. With the name of an insider. I felt that in the area that I am currently working in and always worked in that area, the area of water and sanitation, drinking water and sanitation, Kerala could have done a lot more, being leading it. In sanitation and drinking water, to lead is quite difficult, but lead, it must be done. Leading is important. These things happen when I speak. Okay. Yeah.
Trembling. Seeing you. Trembling.
You're audible, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I take here the example of water and sanitation, which has been implemented in Orissa. It is no more Orissa, it is Odisha. That Lord, in both drinking water and sanitation, Odisha has lagged behind. And yet, it need not. The state is poor, people are poor, and the infrastructure is poor. But things can be better. In our thinking, sanitation, drinking water, if these are not based on sustainable models, it will be a flash in the pan, an inauguration when everybody says they get water, good water, drinking water, and at the same time that they have the best of sanitation. Unfortunately, The case is that for sanitation, every family should have at least one toilet. And every family should be connected to drinking water. In our case, there was water available to over 150 villages, and sanitation to over 1,25,000 families. All these villages, they manage their own system. That is because from the very beginning itself, we found a way where the whole program, the whole implementation is sustainable. How do we do this? We create a corpus. Every family in a particular village, and there has to be in that village 100% agreement from all the people that they will keep the facilities 100% for all time to come. So for that, they create a corpus. At present it is 1,000 rupees per family. This corpus is deposited in a bank, and the interest from it is used to see that the facilities that are to be there are covering everyone, every family. And so you are looking at me.
That's why I was pushing you that sir, increase the pace, he is going to intervene.
Okay. No, before I came itself, there is a note to conclude within 2 minutes.
That is for somebody else, not for you.
So, there is a subsidy from the government for sanitation and even for drinking water. So this subsidy may not be there for always. So this 1,000 rupees per family is used in a way that the interest from this can subsidize, if necessary, families which come later into the village. And they do not have, if they are poor, that all are poor, they would be able to get the subsidy, and that is the way to keep 100% coverage of the whole. There is the water supply is done in a way that all will get metered water. So, and this water is available 24 hours through 3 taps to all the families. And because it is metered and people get it as a right, and they have also the duty to pay the meter charges. So that is how the whole thing is maintained. This has been successful to a great extent. We have been particularly successful in the unreachable villages, that is, tribal villages, scheduled caste villages in faraway locations. We have found that people, if they can get if people can get a dignified approach to any approach in the exercise of any right, there is less chance of failure. In this case, our tribal people, they often say the people living in the nearest town, they do not get 24 hours flowing piped drinking water. They do not have toilets, and we have it. And so their feeling of themselves that in Hindi say, "Hum kisi se kam nahi." So we are second to none. That is a feeling that they have. That is something that makes them to keep all these people, all these facilities are eternal. So, yeah, before I am presented as slip.
The slips these days mean that you have to leave the company. And Microsoft gave just last week 15,000 slips.
Pardon?
Slips. You can leave. jobs go?
Yeah. I was quite surprised that I was invited to this meeting in the southernmost corner of India, and I thank the organizers for doing that, especially Deepa. So thank you very much.
It's been a revelation to me what you intend to do through this initiative. Pretty path-breaking in how you're confronting upfront the fact that there are a second generation of issues emerging as a result of fast-paced economic development, as a result of how we've treated our ecological resources, etc., etc. And issues that cannot be sorted out as easily as solutions are often presented. Looking at complexities upfront, recognizing the multidisciplinary nature of the problem and recognizing it's beyond the capacities of single local governments. That itself is presenting the complexity head on. And in that situation, to try and find innovation and bring in a risk-taking ability within a system that is basically risk-averse makes it even more courageous for you. And so yesterday, I am a program person, so I look at things very programmatically. So I was confronted with the methodologies that were presented, how systematically the hackathon was codified, how the steps were laid out. And I said, they're safeguarding themselves. They're developing safeguard rails so that they're not criticized in innovating too much or taking too many risks. And then one started looking at the pilots that you are actually, and that's where the strength is, that's where the energy is. And then by the end, when you reach there, you say, forget codifying the methodology so much. And so my point to you again and again is, yes, we're working in a very risk-averse system, but that should not put to risk our basic idea of being out of the box, of really putting together stakeholders who do not usually come around the table and who usually do not have access to local governments, and local governments don't have access to them. Now, if the core idea is that, then part of this codification brings in some contradictions. Do we always need a catchment of a block? Some of our problems, and many of them relate to adaptation to climate change. They can be positioned clearly there, linking it to local economic development, adaptation to climate change. And everyone recognizes that can always not be restricted to administrative boundaries of blocks and districts. There is a case for ecosystem boundaries. Yes, we're working with local governments. Let's not restrict the catchment to the way we've described it. In the initial stages, we may need to, but part of these pilots is also to say what cannot work in the future. So like we say, each of these pilots is a proof of concept. This program itself is a proof of concept. And so let's be critical of the approaches that we're taking right now, just so that when and we're constantly talking of scalability, just so that when we are prepared for scaling up some of these pilots, we can say now we veer away from some of these ideas. They do work and they don't work. Some of those issues that we're addressing may not be harvested at the level, or may not be addressed, or cannot be worked on at the scales that we're really talking of. So that was one challenge that I saw, and a need to bring in some balance there. And this was referred to earlier also in the meeting, in the exchange right now, we're acutely conscious of the need to scale up. And scalability will, of course, nothing succeeds like success, and showing a few successful pilots would be a good input into that process. But a good documentation of processes that have worked and that have not worked. And Mr. Unikrishnan, you referred to a lot of challenges that you're confronted with. and ways of moving around them and obstacles, and I think we have to be candid in putting them down. 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, 2 steps forward, 2 steps backward. But the difficulty in actually piloting such an initiative in the system is something that needs to be documented right through, and there was a reference somewhere to MEL systems. We don't get a sense of how strong the monitoring, evaluation, learning loops are. I think the learning loops are extremely important for a program of this nature. What is it that when we upscale, what is it that we will have to be confronted with and what will not work is something that we can only put together through a good documentation of processes and challenges there, and what has worked and what has not worked. Let's be candid there. I also found it placing too much emphasis on a bottom-up, demand-driven problem-seeking, problem-solving. Some of these issues we have known for long. So can we anticipate? Can it be preemptive? Do we always have to have a bottom-up system? Can we just go and seek out? The problems are there staring at us. Is it so important for it to be brought up from the ground, or can we be organizing the local governments to look in a certain way and address it? Is a question I had. So my plea to you is really don't codify this problem to an extent, to the program to an extent that it comes in the way of innovation. It's a good way to safeguard it, and it's a good way to tell the cynics that we know what we're talking about, but maybe sometimes we don't. This is what innovation is about. So maintaining that balance is the biggest challenge, I think, confronting this problem. One of the ways of, and I come from a bilateral ecosystem, sadly it no longer exists, but the beauty of the funding from these various international governments was they gave you risk-taking capacity. And now where is that risk-taking capacity? It's in the funding that's available for climate change. That's roughly what the world is confronted with. That's what is the largest concern, and that's where some of the resources, maybe not enough, but are being directed. I did a piece of work trying to document initiatives of local governments on climate issues. Of course, rural would be more on adaptation, the urban ones would be on mitigation. There was a complete dearth of cases and examples of good adaptation initiatives at a scalable level in most countries of Asia. So the world is looking out for work there, and that's not a surprise. The city networks and the level of organization that has gone into organizing urban governments is pretty absent in the rural context. The private sector is definitely more interested in mitigation, and the public-private partnerships are being forged more easily, with the networks also backing them up. But if a program of this nature could show some level of success in organizing local governments around problems that are being confronted, it could position itself very differently, and it could attract some risk-taking monies and resources. I think that's where our eyes should be in how we position the initiative. LET, local self, it has enough concepts that make it unique, but let's not tie ourselves down so much to it that we lose the larger picture, and let's start positioning it quickly to look at where the resources can come 2 or 3 years from now, what will improve our capabilities and our risk-taking capacities. And in the end, of course, once more, congratulations. Kerala never fails to surprise. Here too, it's full of surprises. There are a lot of lessons that we look forward to. Thank you.
On some urgent work here. I was associated since the beginning of this initiative. It is dearer to my heart, and I wanted to learn the very illustrious have shared their ideas. It's really great luck for me. I'll just share my thoughts on as a pointers. Then I can get back to Deepa with a detailed note on my ideas. I understand that the effort of the organizers of this event is to address mainly few important objectives in my point of view. One is of course to solve our problems and improve quality of life or living. Because we know that Kerala has addressed the issue of absolute poverty to a great extent. So now the next objective is how can we improve the quality of life. Quality of life has different connotations. So we have to understand what exactly the quality of life is. One is to improve the quality of life. And second, of course, creating employment. We are facing the problem of unemployment in Kerala. So our innovation effort should create employment. And of course, the third is creating and demonstrating high quality solutions to problems, not only to solve our problems in Kerala, but all over the country. I think we should not be limiting addressing the problems to Kerala only. As our Honorable Prime Minister keep projecting India as Vishwaguru, in fact, Kerala can become Bharat Guru in innovation to push ourselves and the next orbit of quality of life. The areas where we can focus is, of course, product, one local government, one product, one district, one product, but product includes the service sector also. And in the service sector, I think one example I can take, we are a diabetic state, Kerala. No doubt we are managing the problem well, but can we initiate a program to prevent or delay the onset of this whole non-communicable problem? This itself can create a huge need for services, either pro bono or actual on charge as an employment generator. Second is, of course, green economy, green products and green services. That is another area where we should take the lead through our innovative effort. And third area, if it is not already there as objectives of Kdisc, create a skilled task force who can be engaged by other states. We can help them to demonstrate and divulgate the practices and the stories that where we have succeeded. There are a lot of successful stories. Kerala is far ahead in number of things than the states. And I'm proud of being in terms of Kerala for 38 years, and I can join wherever it is possible. Another important area is agreeing up or making effort or bring out bigger change on our people. There are a lot of areas where we need to change our attitude, our approach. Then only we can project to Kerala as a really loving place to live in, as I think the previous people have mentioned. People should look forward to come and settle down in Kerala. For leading good quality of life that is not intense, that we create on our own. And another important area is connecting with so many other organizations who are working in the area, who can really contribute. Like suppose one in my mind is Mission Samruddhi based at Chennai. They are working on livelihoods, ecosystem, environment, and so many areas. I think a lot of ideas can be sourced from that. And another important area is explore for the ideas all over the world, for the ideas that work, and of course to suit our ecosystem. beg or borrow or steal those ideas. I think I'm very, very clear. I personally feel that we need not reinvent the wheel. We should lap it up and then localize, and then apply, and then use it and see that it works and move on. That's how we can, I think, really move fast into the next orbit of improving our quality of total quality of life, our people, and of course across the country. And I really appreciate the effort of the organization in this area, and I'm really happy to share or spare time whenever it is required. And thank you very much for respecting me. I think these are some of my ideas, and thank you very much, Avani.
Learned panel is that most of your speaking points are already taken. So you don't have anything more to contribute other than nodding your head and agreeing. So I think most of the points have been spoken, but I would just try to focus on maybe the way forward for Kdisc, and also to try and see what could actually be shared from experience from other states. So I think the numbers that we speak about for Kdisc over the last year and a half in terms of your work is quite impressive. And if you were to kind of convert this into the work forward, what we need to essentially ask ourselves is, what are we going to do with these 36 pilots? What are we going to do with these projects that we have done? And what is the way forward? What is the innovation? What is the mechanism that we need to adopt? And I think that's where maybe we need to kind of put our thoughts together, and also our efforts in trying to understand what needs to be kind of mobilized in terms of resources, financing. In terms of the strategy, are we going to place these institutions and pilots in the public realm? Or are we going to create social enterprises? Or are we going to create centers of excellence or institutions that can, as Mr. Reddy mentioned, are they going to be looking at the national space as a market? So if we were to create institutions of eminence that can work with other states, that can work with multiple other governments or otherwise societies, then we need to kind of also rethink on our strategy of looking at those institutions and the mechanisms that need to be put in place differently. Two things there, and I think right now, if we were to look at the model, I think it's a garden of 100 or 1,000 blooms. We need to perhaps look at where those areas of impacts are, and maybe also put in a nomenclature that can help us prioritize the impacts. It could be health, it could be education, but do we need to look at multiple sectors in one go? Because right now I think it's also a very resource intensive process that Kdisc is undertaking. Particularly when you're looking at innovation scouting, when you're looking at scaling, and then also looking at placing them within the development architecture, it becomes very important that you need to prioritize how you kind of look at the strategy forward. So I think there are, and when you're looking at examples, it doesn't need to be, and as many others mentioned, we also need to reposition the whole architecture or narrative from the perspective of Kerala as the innovation capital. We already have many use cases. There's also someone who normally calls India as a use case capital of the world, but then we also need to look at innovations from the perspective of Kerala being an innovation capital. So if Kerala needs to be an innovation capital in the different domains, then we also perhaps need to look at what other states are doing, what other countries are doing, because the reason that we have outclassed or I think outwon many of those states in many areas and sectors. So, and many other things that many speakers have mentioned is one of the areas that clicked, I think Dr. Shah mentioned in the initial section, was also that how can we also bring these exchange programs to support the work that Kdisc is doing? So are there institutions that are of global eminence that can be brought to Kerala to support Kdisc or in its process of rediscovering innovation processes? I think that would be an excellent idea to pursue. So if there's something that we could work through from the different projects that many multilaterals or bilaterals are implementing in the state, I think that becomes a mechanism for inviting partnerships with institutions of global eminence. So can we bring partnerships? That's something that we could do. Second, I think you already have partnerships with national institutions like IIT Mumbai, but they could also be, I think, and in this case there is also Social Alpha that I see. There are, I think, if you were looking at the innovation space, there could also be multiple other institutions that could look at specific areas. One example that immediately comes to mind is if you're looking at the digital space, you also have institutions like Beacon Protocol or maybe FIDE based out of Bangalore, or even otherwise centers of excellence of different data corporations that could actually be leveraged to kind of bring together into different areas of work. Now, I'm not saying that we need to bring in private sector into each and everything so that there is a business interest created out of it, but there could be a social capital and political capital that can be built along with that kind of work model. The second thing is that if you were to look at the auxiliary groups that I think Dr. Joy Lemon mentioned, that if you were to look at Kudumbashri, and if you look at the auxiliary groups and how do you kind of upskill them, then there is also models like Laboratoria in Peru, which has actually looked at women task force, women workforce in that country, and identified women to become coders. So can we look at a new generation of workforce? It doesn't need to be coders, it can be something else as well. But can we look at Kudumbashri from a perspective that can be upskilled, Kudumbashri version maybe 5.0, 2.0, whatever we call that. But it can be an upskilled version of Kudumbashri where you can kind of look at the skill sets that are in demand for the market and look at them from a task force perspective. One particular example is, and again, just as an anecdote, maybe 1 minute out there, is when we interacted with some of these community resource persons in a district in a certain state of northern India. And the notion that we go with as development practitioners in the rural areas is that farmers need inputs, farmers need chemicals, farmers need fertilizers, farmers need water. What else do they need? But when we interacted with women community resource persons in that particular state, one of the major asks from those women group was, can we become drone pilots? So can we handle software? Can we handle technology products? I think the aspirations that community resource persons and farmers or otherwise the development beneficiaries in this country are also undergoing a sea change. And I think these vehicles or these institutions can actually reflect them better. So we need to also place technology as part of the service offering. And the last point I think I would want to make is to look at the financing model. And for that, maybe as an option and an idea to kind of place before this is also to think about a government outcome lab, which can actually look at maybe the multiple indicators that the government is tracking and use that as outcome financing instruments. So in this case, you have multiple outcomes that you're targeting. You're looking at poverty reduction, you're looking at productivity enhancement, you're looking at pollution reduction. So most of these outcomes can actually be monetized if you were to convert them into outcome financing instruments like development impact bonds, social investment capital. So there could be different ways we could look at outcomes, and these outcomes from the pilots need to be captured. And these outcomes are what you need to kind of put in if you were to look at a different financing instrument. Only then can we think about a model where your pilots do not end up in local institutions but become independent institutions. So for that, I think you would need to think about a strategy where you don't need to look at public institutions as the only anchor point for your institution, for the pilots. You would also need to think about creating them as independent enterprises in the future that can become maybe the next unicorn from Kerala. I think I'll stop there and maybe come back.
So nice time management and giving us all the points which we were looking forward. Thank you very much. Now may I request Dr. Dinesh Abral.
Who I am? I'm a comrade, number one. Okay. And I have been in this journey with Uni and other friends like Hydra and many more, and people I name in this movement which is known as People, Science and Technology movement. Almost now for, I think, we worked in Watershed and so on, etc. He knows Ajay is sitting here, Ravindran was sitting here, all these friends we have tried working together in the movement format. This movement has given us a lot of lessons, and whenever opportunities came, we took advantages of those opportunities. Our journey started with Department of Science and Technology, Science and Society program. Because we took advantage of that particular program and tried institutionalizing, work that UNI is at the moment, which is an amazing work, and I agree with what Mayor started with, etc. And Muni, all the strength to you. So we work in these areas, etc., with an understanding that political processes are going to create uncertainties and vulnerabilities over the period. And I think, and the life journey has confirmed that. People's plan, local area planning, also face that particular challenge. Bharat Gyan Vigyan Samiti faced that particular challenge in literacy and continuing education, Eklavya, very many friends whom we worked together. We were aware of that these challenges are going to come. So one lesson we tried drawing into methodology that we worked, and we used to have a lot of discussion and discourse, and that among us, the names which I have taken. That is, how do we institutionalize outside the government, also ourselves? In various forms, Rajiv just now said enterprises, he mentioned unicorn, these are all various models oriented towards very different norms and values and goals. And I think everybody has mentioned that, and I think NC mentioned it in the context of revenue context, and I'm sure more of that will be discussed and debated. So what we did was, one is that we institutionalized ourselves outside the government in the form of Center for Technology Development, Society for Technology Development, and so on, etc. These are outside the DST. We IRTC, Integrated Rural Technology Center. And I think Kdisc also needs to actually pursue that immediately. It could be different format at the moment as far as it's concerned, depending on. But we know that this vulnerability comes. Financing may reduce, political support may go away. And I think how do we survive, or not only survive, how do we flourish? I think it has to be thought of very on a priority basis among us. And I wish we discuss it in the groups or outside the groups as an activity, and that's one. What do these groups do? What were those institutions doing which I have named? They were the system design groups. They took the support of technology generating organization. They also took the local government or local, what we used to call the field groups, the group enterprise, a variety of formats we tried. And some of them are living models, they are working. Go to Mandi in Himachal Pradesh, you will see that model functioning, which is intervening even now in the FPOs, when as an institution now. It was working with cooperatives. It was working with the models of institutionalizing which came out of the DST SNP program. And it innovated all the time in institutional formats. Because movements must survive, institutions must survive, governments are not going to continue as, because we live in that environment, and I think which is okay. So these system groups used to, and technology generating groups, and the groups that used to work as platforms. Idea of platform has come now. We used to work as platforms. We worked in leather. We worked in fruits and vegetable processing. We worked in agro processing. These are all areas of local economy development. Because they involve peasants and artisans. They involve the local players. Of course, initially we got opportunities in one set of ways. In agriculture, the opportunities were not there because green revolution did not leave that particular opportunity. And maybe, Unni is still facing the problem that agriculture is not, and I hope he too is able to correct it. Because I'm very worried about that, and I was just mentioning earlier to Mihir that while Nehruvian model had at least green revolution in terms of food production as a food security, food self-sufficiency as an objective. Whereas in Kerala, we were the first ones to implement the land reforms, and we import food. You know, after all, land to the cultivator was for what? You know, if you recall, if you evaluate many of those movements which were creation of 30s and 40s agendas, etc., and we have to evaluate ourselves in that particular way. If we do, then we know to also do correctives. And agriculture is not going to be irrelevant. Urban itself is going to be redefined. In urban, you have to build agriculture. Then only urban will survive. Otherwise, the future of urban is very, very bleak. So, reimagining rural, reimagining urban is what we should be using the criteria for evaluating. Even our pilots. Pilots should be evaluated in terms of, you know, when we choose not just 70% labor, but whether there are certain local economic backward and forward linkages would develop or not. That's very important. Labor costs paying Manrega type, but Manrega has to be finally evaluated in terms of common regeneration, local economy development. Those are the larger goals of local economic development. And those criteria must matter. In fact, I would like our innovation stories and our prefigurative politics that is involved in that, if I put it, to be explicitly there for discussion and evaluation to learn lessons from it. Because I think at the moment they are presented to us as engineering and technological challenges as they have been there, and not necessarily as social innovation or socio-technical innovation or socio-ecological innovations or socio-even economic innovation. I would like the stories to be documented in that manner so that they can be evaluated. We can learn ourselves from our own experience and monitoring and evaluation, real-time monitoring. My next point, because I'm saying this is very institutionalized, we have to institutionalize it into a movement. I don't have ambitions yet, though I think Kerala always played a role in literacy program. We took Anna Kodam to the whole of the country. And we can take these also models to that. But I think I start with firstly that if we survive, we should survive at least. And if we have to survive, documentation, and even when breaks come, they will be utilized in the movement form. And we till now utilize them. All these institutions are pursuing those models, even when the support from Department of Science and Technology was withdrawn. Even when Science and Society program was over, and it's been closed down now within the Department of Science and Technology. So it happened in the case of Ministry of Education. The National Literacy Mission was closed. They are back to each one. But the movements are continuing. And I think that how innovation is institutionalized and not innovation of any kind. Deepa sent me a course. I said, no, this is not what we will be trying. We will be trying something different. Innovation is the word means change. What kind of change? We are looking for a transformative change. What transformation means? Both in the way the productive forces are organized and the way similarly social relations and technical relations are. Governance is reorganized. And even the very model of development, what Mahesh started with, I completely resonate with that particular understanding. And for some of these debates and discussions I've been with my own comrades. For 40 years, I mentioned to him in, and I consider them comrades even now. So the point is, if we can, 2 minutes, actually, no problem. But I continue with this particular train of thought, and let me mention it in this manner, that justice is a very important dimension. Even whether water or whether it's waste, I think it has to be explicitly brought into our discussion. And justice has to be finally translated into not only, as I said, labor, local economy development, etc. And we can do that. And it is, I think, more and more becoming, with neoliberalism having come in, because earlier the Nehruvian model had and in justice, the Nehruvian model, the freedom movement model, which I call, allowed plurality and diversity to coexist. KDIC coexisted in the second 5-year plan. I've been on the board of the KFRDA industry. Similarly, several other types of institutions existed. So even when on the ground you are trying for water or waste, one solution, have parallelly real world experimentation. Because don't be so cocksure that one particular technological solution which we have thought of at this particular moment will survive. So parallel real world experimentation should be our aim. I can go on to Shiri's, but I've seen Shiri's, his challenge. The last point which I will, I think, close it with, that is, Niti Aayog brought out recently a report, my friends, where they said all our developmental expenditure, they evaluated it in the 2021 or 22 report. More than 80% of it has no research line, no research mandate, and no research institution to support it. All our schemes, various schemes, centrally sponsored schemes, central sector schemes, they don't have any such. And I think that needs to be institutionalized. The research support to be built. And how do you support it? I checked that the platforms that need to be created, etc., for all the centers of excellence which you have, the domains which we have taken, we actually say, okay, fine, how are we going to institutionalize research support? Before the new government comes in, I hope it's the left front government, I would be wanting to that to come. Whether it will come or not, that the people will decide of this particular state. But we should have our feet and institutions on the ground. I think that we should spend some time on it today, whether we can do it even within the limited time or not. Thank you very much.
In fact, I would like to start from what Dr. Raghunandan had mentioned here. There are two streams which have to be identified as far as Kdisc interventions are concerned, particularly in Oloi. One is we have to improve the functions of the LSJ, for which technology, innovation, etc. would be required. And secondly, we have to enhance entrepreneurship, local economic development, etc. I think I would reflect on these two aspects of Oloi. The first one, that is improving the functions of the local government institutions, do require research support, technology support, and having experience in maybe in transfer of technology of different kinds, and also having the experience of working with the central and local government institutions. I would like to bring to focus one thing, that all these local government institutions are being managed by professionals as of now. There are agricultural officers, veterinary surgeons, doctors, Ayurveda doctors, homeo doctors, engineers, etc., etc., manning all the 13 departments that have been transferred to the local governments. But they have become more and more bureaucratic over a period of time. So the entire concept of innovation, whether it is going to solve the issues of the local people or improving entrepreneurship, it has not penetrated the hard, thick wall, the chrysalis in which the bureaucracy is now got into. So how do you make this interface is one big challenge that we have faced. And this big challenge basically is something which the Kdisc is currently facing. So we may not be able to take on board those professionals who are otherwise professionally qualified to handle these issues. Innovations are not very technology intensive. Sometimes it could be some organizational innovation itself solve many of those issues. So I do not know how to do this. Basically, the departments do not have a mechanism to innovate themselves. They go by schemes which have been drawn out long back and still continuing with the same kind of intervention in spite of two, I would say, progressive governments in place. We have not been able to make much changes, systemic changes have not been brought to in that particular regard. So this is one thing which we may have to very seriously think about. How do we make this interface? And we have been talking about CRL and TRL. So I recall particularly the two interventions which were almost on the verge of getting implemented by in the oil levy scheme. We had this drinking water distribution system, the pressure variant issue, which Dr. Unnikrishnan has now presented. So in fact, that is almost, I think the TRL is almost about 8 or 9, it is almost ready to be transferred. But it could not be taken up, it could not be implemented, just because of the fact that the implementing officer did not find it valuable, he did not have the courage to take that up. The money will have to be handled by him, he will have to put signs on the vouchers, he has to clear all those sanctions, everything, for which he will be answerable at a later point of time on account of audits and other objections, etc. He is afraid of that. So what actually happened was, it was not passed either in the district planning committee, which is a normal course of decision making in local governments. It did not even figure in the discussions. I had told the collector that you have to have a special note on this, you have to take care of this. She said, that's a wonderful idea. IIT has come and some other agency has come, a startup has been engaged, but we don't have any mechanism to engage a startup for that matter in implementing this. We don't have the mechanisms as of now. We don't have the guidelines. So, issue is, how do we make, as Dr. Narayanan said, we have to think of SOPs, detailed guidelines as to how to implement this, how to make this interface. And we have tried our level best to make a few propositions in this regard. The last coordination committee, we thought of maybe formalizing the whole process of project identification by the Kdisc. Being a government agency, let it be the final authority to say that this technology is suitable for such and such situation. And then let it be straight away approved by the district planning committee for intervention. There is no other way out. An officer would not put a signature unless he realizes that this is a duly formed, a duly signed document. So this is one example. So I am more concerned about the current issues that oil levy faces rather than maybe projections. We have got 68 or so interventions and none of this, for that matter, has been implemented. So unless you implement these programs, unless you have field level experiences as to how it has been managed, how it has penetrated across the local governments, we would not be able to come up with maybe models which can be emulated across the country. So this is a wonderful thing. I do not know whether the other local government, maybe other states can even think of this kind of an intervention at all. Because of the fact that we have a well-structured institutional system, we have professionals in place, we have people who can understand many of these technologies. Only problem that remains is to make these interfaces functional and to have institutional arrangements to garner support from higher education institutions and R&D institutions in the state and maybe from other states. So this is one thing which I would like to point out. So instead of maybe CRL and TRL, we may have to think about another terminology, bureaucratic readiness level or administrative readiness level, which is very important. You have to have a BRL also, maybe BRL will have to maybe 10 out of 10 or something, otherwise 9 also will not be received with by the system.
Political readiness.
That also, that's a different thing. Political readiness is okay.
For 40 years I struggled with that.
That we have.
The political readiness, I would reflect on that also, So in spite of this great saga of decentralization, which we have been discussing for the last 26 years or so, I do not know how many of you have noticed, only proactive leadership, only proactive political leadership have been able to do something. Otherwise, things have become run-of-the-mill programs, very mechanized, very bureaucratic, very routinized. So I think the guidelines which exist as of now, the oil program as such, they all leave lot of scope for a proactive leadership to intervene and act. But maybe routine things would happen as routine procedures, as we all see in government offices, and that is one problem with the implementation of projects. And second aspect is, how do you enhance entrepreneurship? In fact, the entire story of entrepreneurship development in Kerala has taken a new momentum in the last, maybe I would say 8-9 years, since we have launched I would say a statewide campaign to attract enterprises, to foster entrepreneurship, bring on board all the agencies involved, etc., etc. And the Year of Enterprise, for that matter, has been acclaimed and praised by the Niti Aayog and the central government as one of the most feasible model of attracting talents and fostering entrepreneurship. And also, local economic development was seen as part of this exercise. We had been experiencing huge revenue deficit. We wanted to enhance the income of the state, and LED was envisaged as a part of that. In fact, as part of this, there had been parallel streams going on. The Startup Mission, every organization has been trying to foster entrepreneurship. They have been trying to come up with support mechanisms. And we thought local self-government institutions, we did not look up at China as a model. In fact, we had some rudimentary understanding about to the entrepreneurs through local governments, right from the district panchayat to the local self-government institution and the rural local governments. So in terms of technology transfer, in terms of development grant, in terms of maybe rehabilitation, in terms of maintenance, etc., we made provision that they can directly fund any entrepreneur or any enterprise which comes forward with an idea. But one thing which I have seen is, Unimash had already told that, it has not been received. In spite of the general environment that has been created in the state, the local government did not come forward to take this. And local economic development still remains to be any development activity done by the Kdisc. And I would say that you have to go beyond the confines of Kdisc if you really want to make local economic development happen. So we wanted to have all different kinds of stakeholders coming forward to take up this activity. In fact, there is an issue with that, and local governments have not been able to understand the ethos, the purpose, the agenda, and the principles of the local economic development, and those guidelines have not been received positively by the local government. That is one thing which I wanted to tell you. And I have attended a program yesterday by the Kdisc. There was an orientation program for these, what is that called? Auxiliary group. I found wonderful people there. There are several auxiliary groups who are into business and enterprise. But one huge gap which remains is knowledge on technology, knowledge on managerial practices, knowledge on market, knowledge on linkages, knowledge on all essential components of entrepreneurship. So unless we have institutions to provide them with hand-holding support, who would be able to do this? We have only a handful of institutions. We have only a handful of universities which can do that. We have only a very few institutions which can provide this kind of knowledge and support. I think this huge gap will have to be filled up. And I think the local self-government institutions are going to be one platform where all such composite information on various aspects of entrepreneurship development could be provided. And that is very important. And basically, the Kdisc has already started one initiative to provide block-level innovation centers. Again, that has not been effective. We are not able to attract talents from the local level. We have got retired hands, we have got scientists who are retired, professors who are retired, but they are not able to come to a local government and sit there for a while and engage in this process of providing consultancy or advice to people who require it. Maybe even local bodies themselves can make use of that. We have a district resource center which which has got every prominent personality in that center. Anybody, any professional who is retired or even otherwise active, people can be part of that. I have never seen any support from anyone, and we have not been able to provide that kind of a mechanism as well. I think we have to think about building up feasible and useful interfaces with the local self-government institutions to instigate this process of innovation, particularly from the point of view of OLOI. And the most immediate task would be to take up the 68 or 32 or whatever technologies that we have identified to the field and find out whether they are going to be received by the local governments and the people concerned.
We felt that there need to be a focus on technology, because we will be focusing on the fecal sludge management at the decentralized level. So naturally, technology scouting is very important, because different terrains, different technologies and different conditions, etc. is there. So naturally, an appropriate technology scouting has to be done. I submit this as Kdisc will be doing these things. Then secondly, if technology scouting is completed and if we decide on the technology to be implemented, naturally if it has to be succeeded, then we need to have co-service management agencies, either as startups or self-help groups or green technology centers and such other things. So these co-service management agencies have to be identified and empowered for doing a uniform service. Then they also have to be equipped for carrying out the operation and maintenance based on a standard operating procedure. We stopped there with that. And on solid waste management, we had detailed discussion on that, and then arrived at a statement that decentralized bio-waste processing has to be taken as the policy. There should not be any confusion regarding whether we need to have centralized treatment or decentralized treatment. Only decentralized we have to, because it is an accepted methodology, so naturally that has to be thought of. Then there are various issues with the decentralized waste management system now, which is known. Naturally, this has to be considered, and then certain measures, standard operating procedures has to be thought of, and then it has to be applied. So we had time only up to that. The balance of that and energy we could not discuss. We will discuss at home and then get back to you.
Okay. Come. Group 4 and 5 also get ready. Yeah. Come please.
Our topic is urban traffic and transit issues. For the convergence of stakeholders on traffic movement, first of all, integrating the local government to PWD, traffic police, town planning and MVD, etc. Integrating bus stops and metros. vehicle actuated traffic lighting system for light sensors. Timing of signals will auto change, depends on the density of the traffic. Avoiding the taxi mafias. Then time management to ease out the traffic load. The most important to expand the micro commutations, EV scooters, rental options for EV scooters, EV transport systems, etc. Example is a ULO. It is an app in Bangalore. Then Karnataka is a model for the transport commutations. Nammayatri is the booking app. It is exactly similar for like Ola app. There is no booking charges, so no traffic, no driver mafia is there. Then expand water metros to other cities for time management. Then providing slow off-peak water transport systems. Then possibilities of cable car. Expanding the cable cars in hilly areas. Switzerland is one of the models. The possibility of high-speed rail, e-Ubers, electric buses for public transport, micro commutations over large infrastructures. High-speed rail is essential, but one of the challenges is land and design. Piloting cable cars in hilly areas. It also helps to the promotion of tourism, etc. Thank you.
Group 4. Yeah, please.
We were discussing data infrastructure, data management and urban solution platform. We have 3 rows along which we were discussing. This one is open data platform. Second is networking of all data sources. And finally, solution platform. So we believe that the future lies in creating an urban data stack, which can also be called as a municipal information system. But an urban data stack is what can help us create a democratized, automated, decentralized information system. And the indicators along which the open data platform should be measured is one, that it should be accessible to all. It should be able to host real-time data. It should also make data non-personalized, because that is also a concern that most of the issues with trust, piracy issues are kind of centered. So we believe that non-personalized data should actually be part of it. The third thing to also consider is which anchor department needs to host it, and how do you retrieve it and analyze and interpret it. So you need to also have a SOP, a standard operating protocol, along which open data has to be used, accessed, or retrieved and analyzed and put in the public platforms. We believe that for the data to be relevant, it needs to be interoperable, so that mobility data, water data, revenue data all need to talk to each other. So the urban data stack needs to be interoperable. Lastly, I think on the solution platform, our group thought that it should be the same problem to solution lifecycle that is mentioned in the OLOI report that needs to be adopted. We also thought that it would also be helpful to include crowdsourcing of data, which means citizen science projects, citizen engagement projects can also generate data that also needs to be part of the urban data stack. I think that's what we discussed. Okay, I think that's all from us.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit Radhakrishnan. Now, group 2 and group 5. Group 5 is ready? Yeah, please come.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our topic was on urban employment, including underemployment and employability. So we started a discussion with the existing schemes which is available, and we could find that Iyengali program, which is currently focusing on the urban employment, is actually catering the older people, average of 55 to 65, and majority of having a very low wage structure. So we just thought that so starting should be with the convergence of existing programs. So whatever programs are there, there is a need of convergence, which is not happening right now. So next would be how to support the youth and career break women workforce. So that is where we understood the need of a platform creations. It could be in terms of creative economy, tourism, care economy, it is one of the booming area, sports. So there is a need of a platform where actually, there are aspiring entrepreneurs within the LSGs, and at the same time there are a lot of people who can contribute. So there is a need of a platform where these people are getting connected. So next was related to capital issues. How do you mobilize the capital? So we understood that there is a need of a corporate linkages. So you can actually link and cooperative, yes, linkages. So that is that was our second point. And third was regarding the networking. Okay, and networking is like we have skilling programs and all. We can have a lot of networking happening so that we could be deal with. And we have programs like work near homes, which need to be promoted more. And also recently with the Vijnana Kerala and all, we have a job station networks that is initially initiated, but we need to strengthen them so that the people can come there, discuss about jobs, how to get, not just about the jobs, about the possibility of employment and employability. And I think these are the major points we discussed. Did I miss something? More inputs later. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anupa. I think now group 2. I think, yeah, please.
We have group 2. We looked on the urban settlement systems and urban spaces management, including open spaces, water bodies, and recreational areas. So the part of affordable housing, one thing is eco-friendly housing designs, promoting low-cost, energy-efficient building materials and green technology, and should be sustainable. And another opinion is came as regulation, basically on the space utilization for different areas, including houses. And in the settlement reorganization part, one is common utility spaces. For example, how we can identify spaces within a settlement, maybe within a house. What kind of spaces can be made into common? For example, car porches, this kind of things. Community living possibilities. For example, elderly population. For example, in the case of Pathanamthitta, they need it. So elderly population kind of communities can be lived in community kind of living spaces. Recognizing slum areas with proper.
And within this short term, it is not really possible to have a detailed discussion and come out. But we request all the group, those who are participating, if there are any points, please send it to us. Our main purpose is because now we have started mainly with the local self-government, which is in the rural areas, and we started with the block innovation cluster, which also catered to the rural areas. But we have very sizable urban population, and it is going to increase. So in the urban areas, how it is going to happen. Anyway, these inputs will help us to further and also build over this one. Now I request Dr. Unnikrishnan to finally conclude the session.
I'm extremely thankful to the eminent panel which reflected on the OLI program, the morning session, which I'm supposed to consolidate. There are quite a lot of inputs which have come. I'm not quite sure whether I'll be able to do justice to all the comments which have come up. But anyway, since we have a recording, What I can promise is that I would carefully go through the proceedings once again and then document all the points so that we could have a real going forward around based on the inputs.
You can also ask us to give a note so that your life is easier. Otherwise you will have to do it yourself. Whatever we spoke.
Yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, I will just run through some of the important points as a sort of, refreshing whatever points I did. The NC has already shared the note. I could not go through that anyway. You said that you have shared the note. Okay, you'll share it later. Okay. We started off with Dr. Meher. I'm extremely humbled by the sort of good words that all the experts have talked about Royal Oil. I don't know whether we truly deserve that, but anyway, it's good that you have been all able to review the program and give very meaningful inputs. Dr. Meher had specifically referred to linking internationally and suggested tie-ups with the University College London, the University of Berkeley, and the University of Stanford, and specifically indicated points of contact also. He had reflected that the paradigm of development has gone through a sea of a change. From where we started off before the Industrial Revolution, the post-industrial revolution, and the nature of relationship between man and nature, keeping the ecosystem at the center, has created a sort of paradigm developmental shift which becomes very important in the light of whatever we are trying to do. Especially also considering that we have focused on the principles of subsidiarity and also engendering as primary focal areas in the initiatives. He also suggested that leveraging the fragility of the Kerala economy and making an effort to mainstream innovation is extremely important, and he felt that he would be also able to guide us and take this forward. Raghu, as always, first of all, he had proposed that he would be of support to the initiatives of Kdisc and Kerala. He pointed out that his work with Professor Govind Rao and also the document which he had co-authored with the working group of urbanization, the state planning board, that would be meaningful references for oil oil. He felt that the overall innovation landscape around the 36 problems seems to be not sort of clustered and cluttered, and there is a need to structure it into two categories. One is a broad category of providing services to local government, and the second one were working with businesses for local value creation and diversification. So these were two segments. He said that we could structure the whole activity. He also touched upon the whole issue of local governments remaining in an agency role, not going beyond the real local self-government role, going to the local government role as is envisaged under the constitutional amendments. And also the whole situation that has been created with the town panchayats not being created. So there are challenges which have come up in terms of essentially the limitation of local government functioning has also been created by the non-creation of town panchayats for and retaining them as rural bodies. There is a necessity for a reform in the procurement mechanism. We rightly point out that quite a lot of threats are there for the model that we are taking up. there is a need for a serious reform of the procurement mechanisms. The service organizations and the resistance to transformation is likely to be a challenge. He suggested that Kerala should look forward to mechanisms for attracting talents from Bangalore who have capabilities in innovation and creating enterprise ecosystems. Goa has already done that in the case of designers, attracting talents from Delhi and Mumbai, so we could actually emulate such a model. He also offered that he could help us in creating a mind map of the OLO activities coming down, and he's looking forward to fried fish. That's his. Dr. Joy Eleman, he had reflected on the PPC, the Kudumbashree, the MNREGA program and their contributions to LED. He was feeling that quite a lot has been already done under LED, and Vijnana Kerala is in fact a very good model for driving the LED future model. The enterprise models have to be worked around the auxiliary group with the new gen skill sets. He also felt that the startup ecosystem has to be leveraged very seriously in terms of local economic development. MC Narayanan had focused on the small, disruptive, low energy, low capital intensive solutions for marginalized groups. They hold quite a lot of promise. DVATs and Bio1 are representative models for these approaches. He was happy that OLOA has been able to question the top-down framing of problems, and also the TRL and CRL frameworks have some value in terms of taking local innovations forward. He felt that the OLO model has been useful in terms of taking, in terms of the democratic decentralization focus, and also the felt need-based problem solving and addressing contextual challenges. Academic linkages are important drivers, and incentivizing faculty is important for that. For keeping the OLO model running, the ensuring financial resources is very critical. Standardization and simplification of SOPs, monitoring and evaluation systems, linkages or possible tie-ups with the Jal Jeevan Mission, Amrit, etc. has to be thought of. Procurement mechanisms, design standards, tender specifications, manuals are all extremely critical. And especially since we are working on public goods, there is a need for looking at public investment-centric models, and also innovative PPP models could be thought of. Joe Mediatrice has quite a lot of experience in working with on right-based grassroots level groups, had come up with the story of the model of how in Odisha they have been able to create self-reliant, right-based, universal, failure-proof management systems which are run by the local villagers themselves in drinking water sector. He felt that Kerala should try to emulate contextualized models based on such experiences. Preeta Lal, she talked about documenting the processes meticulously so that the processes which have worked and which have not worked can be established. That would be extremely important from the point of view of similar initiatives elsewhere. She indicated that climate change resources would be a meaningful climate change resources is one area where resources, because bilateral funding have been discontinued, one of the possibilities is to use some climate change resources. She felt that the insistence on scalability and quantification of process can be disadvantageous in possibly sometimes killing the innovation spirit. Demand-driven and bottom-up insistence whether it is most important in terms of OLOI may be critically reviewed. This was also one of our remarks. W.R. Reddy, he had indicated that Kerala, having addressed abject poverty, quality of living and employability and employment are critical areas. There is a need for, last time also he had insisted that there is a need for networking with other agencies which are working in this area, and he even suggested Mission Samruddhi as possible connect. He suggested that Kdisc should position itself as a Bharat Guru in innovation. There is a need for quickly looking at solutions which are available elsewhere and rapidly adapt and move so that we will be in a position to be. So there is a need for us to. Expectations, yes. So there is a need for us to reimagine agriculture, especially in the urban context in Kerala, and also look at creating an international platform. He was also worried about how the Kdisc institutional model could be sustained, and he felt that there is a need for us to look at very seriously on the possibility of the institutional model. I will now go to Dr. Jichu PLX. Dr. Jichu PLX had reflected seriously on the various models of OLOI and the sort of, even the DRL 9 programs could not actually be implemented because of the constraints which are there in the local government system. Some of the issues have been addressed, but there is a need for us to have a more systematic approach in terms of taking this program forward. He felt that he also felt that there are two areas where the OLOI programs could be structured. One as support to LSGI functions, and the other one around the entrepreneurship and LED models, as Raghu suggested. He felt that there are quite a lot of professional support which is available among the implementing officers, and this is one area where Kdisc should try to create an interface and take that forward. A beautiful set of guidelines had been created for local economic development, but unfortunately we have not been able to take ahead that program for entrepreneurship. There is a necessity for us to focus on the local economic development model as one of the important components of OLOI. Possibly the new cadre which is coming up in local government could also be leveraged for this. The auxiliary groups training, he also reflected his experience with auxiliary group training and found serious gaps in terms of knowledge which some of the functions are there, but they definitely hold quite a lot of promise in taking the enterprise model further. But there is a need for us to address these gaps. There is a need for institutional arrangements at the local level to address this, and Kdisc could also possibly integrate with the district resource centers which have been envisaged by the planning board. And even the block innovation cluster has not actually got a space in terms of the block panchayat functioning, in terms of integrating the academic institutions and putting in place the triple helix model, so, or the quadruple helix model. So these are things which need to be addressed. And finally, we had Nizamuddin. He also pointed out that there is a need for leveraging the cadre of secretaries who have joined the local governments recently. Many of them are professionally qualified, and there is a scope for us to connect with them. He also felt that the polity would work proactively on innovations if there is a interface layer, like a manager would address these problems and take things forward. He felt that academic tie-up in terms of taking forward the innovation program is extremely important. He recollected his own experience in Katakada, where he had been working with the students of engineering college as interns for initiating the programs of check dams in the streams. So he felt that, with the 152 blocks and the engineering colleges and institutions, there could be a clear mechanism established so that the students would get advantage of the exposure to the technical problems, and the local governments would have the mechanism of addressing some of their important felt needs. So these were, I tried to sort of consolidate whatever the points that come during the discussion. I'm not sure whether I've done full justice to that, but anyway, as Dinesh had pointed out, we will take notes from you and take this forward. I'm extremely thankful to all the members of the panel and the MCT group and the bottom-up group who have taken the time, felt that this particular experiment of establishing the innovation ecosystem and handling the second generation development problems of Kerala is something very important. And we are all extremely keen on keeping this connect and taking this program forward. We look forward to your continued guidance and support in taking this program ahead. If we are successful in taking, at least as Dr. Jiju pointed out, we are not being able to take a single one of the innovation so far for implementation is definitely a major shortcoming. So we hope that with the decisions which have been taken by the coordination committee, at least fortunately we have the corporation, the Tiruvandhuram corporation has started implementing a few things. That's the only local body which has taken the lead to do these things. So we are hopeful that we will be able to take ahead the things, the fruits of my team which have been working hard on this to take them forward. We hope that we will be able to reflect further on this in terms of the progress, in terms of the impact these programs will make in the field. We look forward to inputs from all of you to take this further. Thank you.